The illusion of labels in Shakespearean drama. The core theme of these Shakespearean works is the tragic danger of mistaking arbitrary social labels for inherent immutable realities. Shakespeare consistently challenges us to recognize that the divisions we impose upon the world, be they geographical, familial, or social, are artificial constructs. In both The Comedy of Errors and Romeo and Juliet, the playwright illustrates how human perception often distorts reality, leading us to imbue empty labels with a significance that they do not possess. This misguided reification, the act of treating an abstract concept as if it were a physical, tangible truth, serves as the catalyst for conflict, suffering, and ultimately catastrophe. When we allow these labels to define our relationships and our value, we create a fragmented, illusory world that separates us from the inherent unity of human existence. The ontological error of naming. To understand Shakespeare's deeper philosophical inquiry, we must examine how he deconstructs the identity of his characters. Throughout these plays, he asks the audience to look past the surface-level classifications that govern social order. By focusing on the physical nature of the human being, Shakespeare exposes the emptiness of the titles that characters are forced to carry. Arbitrary designations, names like Syracusan, Ephesian, Montague, or Capulet, are presented as mere inventions of language. They serve utility for communication, but they possess no biological or spiritual grounding. The failure of perception. Characters suffer because they act as if these labels have an intrinsic essence. When someone kills another over a name, they are acting on a delusion, mistaking a social fiction for physical enemy. The anatomy of identity, as Juliet astutely points out, if one were to dissect the body, one would find no trace of a family name. These labels are imputed entities, projected onto the person by society. Yet they exert a terrifying power over the individual's life choices and ultimate fate. The tragic consequences of separation. The structural tragedy in Romeo and Juliet arises specifically from the characters' attempt to bridge the divide created by their names. Their love is authentic, yet it is intercepted by the false reality of the feud. Because the world they inhabit insists that a Montague and a Capulet are inherently distinct and irreconcilable, the lovers find themselves in a state of existential imprisonment. The initial delusion, the families treat their respective labels as fundamental truths of existence. This belief system is the prerequisite for the tragedy, turning what should be a minor social difference into a mortal conflict. The awareness of absurdity. Juliet is the first to articulate the insanity of their situation. Her realization that Romeo is himself, regardless of his name, demonstrates the capacity to see past the collective delusion of their society. The fatal irony, despite their intellectual recognition that names are empty, the characters remain trapped by the consequences of the collective social belief. The tragedy is not that the names exist, but that the belief in the reality of those names is shared by the community, embodying the conflict. Shakespeare utilizes powerful dramatic imagery to drive home his philosophical point. By having Romeo contemplate the physical destruction of his own body to sack the mansion where his name resides, the author provides a vivid metaphor for the frustration of dealing with an abstract enemy. Romeo's search for his name within his own anatomy is a profound, albeit painful, demonstration that the label is nowhere to be found. Visualizing the invisible, when Romeo threatens to destroy his own body to excise his name, he is physically manifesting the internal struggle to detach one's true self from an unwanted label. Futility of violence, because the label has no existence, it cannot be killed by the sword. This highlights why the conflict remains unresolved. You cannot destroy a concept through physical aggression. The resonance of irony. The fact that Tybalt and Romeo die over a name that does not exist in their physical being underscores the much ado about nothing nature of their strife. It is a profound waste of life predicated on a total misunderstanding of what a name truly is, the wisdom of disillusionment. What makes these plays so timeless is their persistent invitation for the reader to undergo a similar process of disillusionment. By watching the characters suffer for their devotion to empty labels, we are encouraged to examine the labels we use in our own contemporary lives. We categorize others by their backgrounds, social standings, or affiliations, often forgetting that these too are simply words. The tragedy of the Capulets and the Montagues serves as a warning against the dangers of social reification. When we allow these artificial categories to dictate our actions, we sacrifice our capacity for empathy and our ability to see the common humanity that transcends all nomenclature. Shakespeare's message is an optimistic one. Hidden beneath a layer of tragedy, if we can recognize that these labels have no inherent existence, we can liberate ourselves from the jarring sense of separation that characterizes our most destructive conflicts. Bridging the gap. To move toward a more compassionate understanding of our fellow human beings, we must engage in a constant active deconstruction of the labels we take for granted. The goal is not to abandon language, but to abandon the delusion that language defines the essence of a person. Cultivating discernment, we must learn to distinguish between the person and the label assigned to them by society or tradition. Reframing social dynamics. By recognizing that our conflicts are often based on empty concepts, we can lower the tension that drives us toward unnecessary strife. Embracing universality, like Juliet, we are empowered to see the hand, foot, and arm of our neighbors, acknowledging that their physical and emotional reality is just as valid as our own, regardless of the labels they carry. In conclusion, the play serves as a profound meditation on the power of the human mind to create its own prison through the reification of names. Shakespeare reminds us that while labels are convenient for the purpose of identification, they possess no intrinsic reality. By clinging to these artificial distinctions, we cause unnecessary suffering and perpetuate conflict. True wisdom involves realizing that the labels we use to distinguish ourselves from one another are, in the end, absolutely nothing. Only by stripping away these external projections can we truly see the other person, thereby dissolving the barriers that prevent unity and understanding.